Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You can't go on, man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Not so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
You ever lead host a show and forget that you were lead hosting? And you're just in your own world, kind of like, waiting for this show to start. And then you hear your EP say, all right, let's have a show, guys. Like, oh, shit, that's me. That's my cue. What's up, guys? Greg Cody's here. He's
Yes.
chuckling.
Good morning.
He's amiable.
I am amiable. I'm an amiable man.
You know what I love more than anything, Greg?
What's that?
When we have perhaps the biggest night in women's college basketball history.
Great.
And we have no women on the show. That's my favorite. Let's mansplain the entirety of last night, ladies and gentlemen.
That's a good point by you.
What the bros are going to talk about. This is what I think. I haven't watched any LSU all season long.
Well, luckily for us, Lucy will be here in a half hour.
Oh, awesome.
Oh.
Great. Because
I've got Iowa.
I've got questions. Admittedly, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am beat by beat up to date with all the goings on.
I am.
All right, so can I ask you questions?
You
then?
were pretty critical earlier before the show.
I'm about to be critical right now. I'm doing the preface right now.
I like this honest perspective of I really tuned in wire to wire for the first time all season last night, and I have thoughts. I like that perspective, and we can contrast that with Lucy, who's watched every minute of Iowa basketball this season.
I'm dying to ask Lucy because Lucy, most of my criticisms are towards LSU, and when I say LSU, I don't mean Angel Reese. I don't mean Johnson. I don't mean Morrow. I mean Mulkey.
Easy.
That's the person I'm like, this is your amazing greatest coach ever? Is this the person we wrote a
tread lightly, and also don't tread on me. Though, bit of a pickle last night, must admit.
So you're saying that she should have defended Caitlin Clark better than she did?
Greg, make an adjustment?
Yeah.
Make an adjustment when there's more than 3 minutes left in the game. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe I'm too busy watching guys like, I don't know, Spo, and Steve Kerr, and Greg Popovich, and I've been warped into thinking, that's what coaching is. It's like something's happening. Okay, let me put my players in the best position to account for this. Nope. We got Haley Van Lith shrugging as she got lit up like a Christmas tree. Haley Van Lit was her name last night. She was lit up.
You've got Angel Reese, who had it cooking early on, and I know she twisted her ankle at some point, but demanding the ball as she's walking to the sideline.
Yeah.
She was a defensive force, but watching LSU play defensively, switching on screens was not on the table until like 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Forget switching on screens.
Like contest.
So the game started with them going under on screens against Caitlin Clark. In NBA parlance, when shit like that happens, they say, as we're running back up court, must not have league pass. That's what we say. When someone does, you go under on Steph Curry, must not have league pass. Meaning you must have never seen any film on this player before.
Wasn't that Joe Mazzulla in the NBA Finals for a little bit? That was like the whole strategy.
Right.
Well, he's watching the town the entire
There you
time.
go.
He's not watching league pass.
So then they got out of that. They're like, okay, we're going to fight over screens. And if I may, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to try to demonstrate. Hopefully the mic is going to be able to pick up. So you said switching. You don't have to switch. The first step before you get to switching is as she's coming off the screen like this and Haley Van Lith is getting clipped, the big, don't switch, hedge.
Hedge.
Just take a step out.
This is right up there with LeBron and J.J. Redick.
Oh,
Greg
my
Cody
God.
and Amino
I mean,
Hassan.
he's so right. The big,
Demo.
all they have to do is show.
And you hold on to the big over here. So we're not switching. I'm staying home, but I'm doing this so that Caitlin Clark has to take one extra step that buys her some time to get a better contest, to get on top of her, to maybe chase her off of that. Nope. Get clipped. I'm staying home with this girl who hasn't got the ball all night long. Let her get a clean look again and again and again and again. It took to, again, late in the fourth quarter of the game for them to make any sort of – they wouldn't even have a different defender on her.
I find your perspective to open this show super refreshing because I think the natural takeaway from last night's spectacle, don't get it twisted, pretty much wire to wire. I know it got a little out of hand towards the very end of the game, but there was still drama in that to see the reactions. That game delivered last night.
Yeah,
it was an
good game.
immense win for women's sports, for the game of women's college basketball, for the viewers at home. It was huge. And you're firing out the gates with Monday morning quarterbacking.
Dude,
it's great.
I'm going to tell you this. This is exactly what I said after the final last year. I said, you know how I know we've reached a new place? Because all of the conversation, Greg, the day after that final last year was not about women's sports or women's this. It was about, hey, they did the thing that she usually does, and that's not cool. And I was like, oh, look, we're having the same conversation we'd be having if it were the men's. And so this year, instead of talking about, well, the greatest night of women's basketball, because Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers put on a show as well in the second game.
Yep.
We're talking about basketball. And that's how it should be. We should be talking about the game. Greg, as a man who has seen all of this growth happen over however many centuries you've been alive.
Yeah, a couple of centuries.
I don't want to seem obtuse here, but, like, is there any part of you that's like, oh, my God, I never thought this day would come?
You know what? I think the championship game last year, LSU and Iowa, was 10 million people viewed it, right?
Yeah.
A record number. That was the beginning, and this season has taken that and moved it further up. I think not only women, it's a great time for women's sports in general. Women's soccer is booming, but basketball, I am more. This is just anecdotal. I'm more interested in the women's game right now. The four teams that played last night, the two games, I was enthralled. I watched every minute of it. It was probably, and this is something I probably shouldn't be admitting to. It was the first time that I watched a women's doubleheader where I actually could name players from all four teams. Like the star power was tremendous. I thought, and every team had a superstar on it, including Juju. I wish I can't say that without thinking of Juju Gotti. I almost wish she had made it because Caitlin Clark hands the baton to her. I mean, what a freshman sensation she's been. So I'm thrilled with the women's game right now.
You know why I'm not mad that Juju lost last night? Because she's a freshman, and because this is women's college basketball, it's not like, oh, she's coming out in the league, so
you're right.
She's got plenty of time to kind of do this, and this might be like a huge learning step for her. I want the vets in there because we're not going to see them again.
Right,
they're going to leave, and so I thought that was all right, but NC State and UConn have both men's and women's teams in the Final Four.
Yeah.
Which is like a step beyond what Miami almost did last year. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah, just a small step. Just a small step. I will say, though, that NC State, for the second consecutive day, I will say, that NC State was Miami's best win on the women's side of things. And they dominated that game. And now NC State finds itself in a Final Four. It was an absolute joke that Columbia made the women's tournament over Miami. It was appalling. Every expert that covers that sport, that is a bracketologist, had Miami in easily. Even if they didn't win a game in the ACC tournament, they ended up winning a game in the ACC tournament. And now NC State's run to the Final Four has justified that this was a criminal offense.
By the transitive properties. right?
Miami's a Final Four team.
I
in my
love
mind.
transitive properties.
Transitive
in sports.
property is the greatest thing.
I agree with Mike.
College football has handed out championships because of transitive property.
Look, I'm a transitive property fan as much as the next, as a UCF guy, and I find a way to bring UCF or the Heat into every conversation. But to be less than 10 minutes into our reaction to LSU and Iowa and make it about women's basketball is just spectacular, Mike
Jeremy,
Ryan.
I didn't do it. Amin did.
All right.
Yeah.
Either way.
And I was just responding to it. However, thank you for the fun. And I will say, I really hope Dan Redikovich hires a coach. It's been 2 weeks, which is an eternity in this cycle. Is Tennessee going to hire a coach before Miami does? We have a great in-house option. I would love it to be Fitzroy Anthony, but I would love a coach in position because right now you have kids in the portal. You have kids on this roster wondering whether they should jump in. You have recruits wondering aloud if they should take visits. It's tough when you wait this long to make a hire.
Well, you got to make the right one, though, right? I mean, would you rather him make a hire just to be quick?
Look, I think you're conflating time it takes to make a hire with making the right hire. This is aging in dog years. When you get to 2 weeks in this part in the calendar, when the portal is open already and people are jumping in and out, this is tough. You need to make a quicker hire if you're Dan Redikovich. You need to make the right one, but you can make the right one inside of 5 days.
I don't think we've actually said Caitlin Clark's name yet. Caitlin Clark was spectacular last night. 9 threes, and I know she had a high volume, but her ability to get open space, you talk about the contest, but her ability, there was one three-pointer that she hit where she was driving into the paint and then literally just backed out to three and was double covered, and while moving her momentum backwards, still was able to get off the shot. And it was so unbelievable to see the way that she set up her teammates. Obviously, unlike Lucy, I haven't watched every game of Iowa basketball. I've watched some.
12 assists last night.
Right, and 12 assists that were so efficient. She didn't really have a ton of turnovers, and it was setting up her teammates for success in that at the beginning of the game, it was a lot of backdoor cuts by her teammates where she was feeding it in. But then as LSU did adjust a little bit defensively to that, you saw her passing over the top. You saw her getting her teammates out in transition. And the pace in that first half was unbelievable, particularly the first quarter. The offense in the first quarter was better than anything I've seen from the Heat outside of their win against the Blazers.
Well, look who just made it about the Heat. I will say what Caitlin Clark provided on the glass was especially impressive because Iowa was on their heels a little bit because LSU was very formidable inside. And it wasn't so much the shots that they were missing inside. It was the shots that they all, Caitlin Clark included, refused to take inside because of how imposing that interior defense was for LSU.
I think there's a chance. You mentioned Mulkey's failure to adjust defensively to stop Caitlin. There's a chance that Caitlin Clark on the money like last night is pretty unstoppable. I mean, she hit her first three, and she was en fuego the entire game. And what Jeremy said, she's a better passer than a shooter almost, which
That's not true.
Is crazy to say.
But to be that
There were
great,
some bad
to
passes.
be that great at both.
Okay,
I'm gonna say this.
her bounce passes through traffic
Spectacular.
that catch the teammate, that lead the teammate right to the back.
Yeah,
Just
I like it.
magical.
I mean, it's a good sign that she's trying to get her teammates involved. And the next level, it's probably going to be a better teammate. But also in that game, you actually notice that Caitlin Clark's got room to improve too. And Ryan Rucco also pointed it out. There were a lot of opportunities where she passed it off to sometimes an unsuspecting teammate where she could just stop, add a runner to her repertoire, just stop and shoot a mid-range shot. And Rucco pointed out that that'll get developed at the next level. To watch that game and realize that there's room for growth, that is incredible.
Look, she's a very good passer. She's an excellent shooter. I just don't believe that you can defend someone like that pretty much the same way for the entire game and then say, oh, it's because she's a great passer. Make her prove that she's a great passer when blitzed. Make her prove that her teammates can be trusted, because that's the number one way to get a great score to stop passing, not to make them turn over on their passes. It's to pass it to people who F up. And then it's like, man, I can't pass it to you anymore.
Got to do this myself.
I can't. Exactly. That's where you want to get them to. She was in a zone. She wasn't even forcing. It wasn't I'm putting the team on my back. She was like, this is.
It was one half-court shot, which isn't a terrible shot for her.
I had to explain to my kid why it wasn't a terrible shot. My kid was like, that's a terrible shot. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
She's hit 7 in a row at this point or whatever it was. And like that point, if you hit that shot, that is lights out for LSU. I do want to point out one thing, though. Kim Mulkey, horrible weekend for her, right? Like this Washington Post expose comes out, even though it wasn't as objectionable.
Nothing burger.
LA Times actually made her win on the media cycle for the weekend.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Terrible.
And then she coaches that abomination of a game last night. But then we get this post-game handshake.
Classic Kim Mulkey.
Yeah.
This is just B-roll, so we're going to have to talk over it, but it's
Okay.
just a classic, aggressive. They're doing the handshake line.
I can't see it, so
And she
I'm
brings
just taking
in-
your word for it.
I mean, they haven't hit it yet. I thought they would be listening to me and
Okay.
Yeah,
hit and going.
they'll take the cue eventually. But anyways, it was a viral dab, and Kim Mulkey was asked after the game, "What did you say to Caitlin Clark?" And Kim Mulkey was actually pretty chill about it. She said, "I'm so thankful you're leaving. I'm just really glad that you're leaving because you're incredible."
An aggressive bring.
The
That's-
hand
by
behind
the
the
way,
neck.
Yeah, a
Last
hug.
last week, I told the story of running into Mike Tyson and thinking I was about to die, and then he pulled. That's exactly how he did it. Can we run it back again one more
With the
time?
hand behind the
That's
neck?
exactly. Pull close, because again, I'm taller than Mike Tyson, like Caitlin Clark is taller than Kim Mulkey, and it's right there. It's like,
That's
alaikum
crazy.
salam, brother, right there in my ear.
See, I think this doesn't look
have
great,
whiplash.
but I do think she's like this is Kim Mulkey being heartfelt.
Oh, yeah, of
like I think
course.
that's about as like kind as she gets right there.
No, this is
wow.
good sportsmanship. She had another video went viral.
The dap.
The dap. I thought that was the one that we had. Maybe
Very,
not.
very clean dap. Say what you will about Kim Mulkey. Clean dap.
She went dap, no look dap.
No, look.
No,
if she would have
look, that-
snapped at the end, I would have been like, damn,
Look,
hold up.
for
Queen.
for some of the more melanin deficient. That is quite the
Clean.
feat. That is
Clean.
quite the feat for her to be able to dap, not even make eye contact with that girl, keep moving.
Man, I would love to picture the Outkick the Coverage newsroom as they aggregate, as they just put out there, Iowa's out for the national anthem. LSU's nowhere to be seen. Someone's got to be throwing their hands up. Guys, no. Kim's an ally. What are we doing?
Wait, you're saying outkick? I want to know about problematic Zagaki.
I can fix her. Can lie. Conflicted.
I'm gonna say that. Who was?
Although Iowa does play the game the right way.
There you go. Who would he be rooting for? Kim Mulkey or Caitlin Clark in a game like that?
He was trying to decide yesterday. It's a hard one for him.
House divided for him.
Yeah.
Well, then, and then Caitlin
He
Clark.
had like the split hat where it's just like just Kim Mulkey and then also Caitlin Clark.
Brady Quinn's sister.
By the way, Kim Mulkey in a green pantsuit, that was a very sedate outfit for her.
I thought so too.
It also
Very
made for
sedate.
some very unfortunate photoshops.
Oh, because it's a green screen.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about something. Everyone was reacting to the game and something that and the dap after the game. There was something purely insane that happened before the game. That if this happened before an NBA final, it would be wild. Did you guys? I had to make sure that I wasn't being April Fooled by it. So Caitlin Clark's warming up before the game, and Angel Reese comes out and puts a crown on the LSU bench and walks away. There is a crown as a message being sent to Caitlin Clark.
That DraftKings is the network that you want to watch, and that's the sports book you want to use.
the
right?
crown is yours.
Crown is yours.
Hell yeah.
But can you imagine if LeBron did this before an NBA Finals game while Steph is having his pregame shooting routine? That this somehow was pretty quiet on the social media front. I think most people had the same reaction, like, this can't be real. Is this real?
I think if LeBron does it, everybody loves it. Everybody loves the bravado. When Angel Reese does it, people don't react as well. There's a double standard there.
Well, I don't.
Hold on.
I have no idea if she does this before every game. She very well might, but it's undeniable with all the added attention with Caitlin Clark there, and all the added eyes that is a message being sent.
So I'm glad we have segued to this topic because, ladies and gentlemen, if you want absolute equality in women's sports, this is what happens. You get guys like me who's going to be like, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk, because this was Angel Reese after the game.
Get to speak out on things just because I just try to ignore, and I just try to stand strong. Like, I've been through so much. I've seen so much. I've been attacked so many times. Death threats. I've been sexualized. I've been threatened. I've been so many things, and I've stood strong every single time. And I just try to stand strong for my teammates because I don't want them to see me down. And, like, not be there for them. So I just want to always just know, like, I'm still a human. Like, all this has happened since I won the national championship, and I said the other day I haven't had peace since then. And it sucks, but I still wouldn't change. I wouldn't change anything, and I would still sit here and say, like, I'm unapologetically me. I'm going to always leave that mark and be who I am and stand on that. And hopefully the little girls that look up to me, and hopefully I give them some type of inspiration that, no, hopefully it's not this hard and all the things that come at you, but keep being who you are. Keep waking up every day. Keep being motivated, staying who you are, staying 10 toes, don't back down, and just be confident.
So we did some digging. Chris Cody finds out. And Chris Cody searches the internet. Angel Reese does wear a crown during pregame intros, and at least dating back to the Sweet 16, she did have the crown out on display on the bench. A lot of people learned this last night, myself included.
I'm going to say this. Death threats, not cool. Sexualizing people, not cool. But I'm not absolving any of that behavior. It's abhorrent. But if you're talking about people being mean to you on the internet, I'm assuming it's not people at the supermarket. People on the internet being mean to you. You put a crown on a seat before every game. You better win. It's the same thing I was talking about Caleb Williams last week, right? Like the same concept. You can do that. I support you and you being you and 10 toes down and standing on business and whatever internet patois we want to use for the day. But you better be nice as You can't turn into a human after you talk or after you do the Superman talk trash.
I am not going to pretend like I have any idea. I know what online abuse is like, but the specific online abuse
that a woman receives,
that she's receiving, I don't really have a connection point to that. I did before the game, ESPN's pregame coverage centered around the fact that this is a rematch. These are two huge personalities. The start of the rivalry was basically Angel Reese taunting Caitlin Clark, and there was on-court banter. And one of the clips that they showed in their pregame package was Diana Taurasi and I think Sue Bird had a watch-along last year for that game. And when Angel Reese was doing that, it's like, that's great. We love that. If you dish it, you got to be able to take it. Now, that is not necessarily being able to take it. This is Angel Reese, an athlete that has just had a devastating loss. They're very clearly going to be taking this at a really difficult time in a really difficult fashion. But to Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi's point, it comes with the territory.
That's what I'm saying. And DT especially, she's someone who talked a lot of shit, college and pro and to this day, but never ever like had a moment of, well, hold on guys, I'm just human. Hold on now, man.
Wait, hold on. There's a difference between reacting to what social media says, which Angel Reese is going through, that Diana Taurasi never had to go through in the same way as a professional, like during the time that she played. Angel Reese, as a college athlete, as a young woman, has gone through some crazy shit on the internet, and that's an entirely different thing from what DT went through. And when you're talking about talking on the court, like, that was never the issue. You saw her go back and forth with Caitlin Clark last night. Like, and by the way,
I also don't know what Diana Taurasi went through.
Of course not. Hold on. I'm not talking about talking on the court, although, again, DT did her fair share.
Right.
It's, it goes back to when LeBron came here. You guys remember this? And he was trying to be the villain, and he didn't really like it. And Reggie Miller was saying, like, in order to be the guy, you got to wear that black hat, and you got to like to wear it. You got to like to wear the black hat. If you can't wear it, then don't wear the black hat. Wear a white hat. Be this is great. Be that person. Be like the positive, everything is okay. But when you want to be the bully, like, it attracts a certain kind of attention.
Yeah, and
I'm not saying
Harlem Shake happened after that, and there was a tonal shift.
Right. So I'm not saying that the attention that she's attracted was warranted or allowable.
I mean, very clearly.
I also want to say I'm wrong. Diana Taurasi played far longer than I realized.
She played until 2023.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I
was looking at you like,
no. I just meant the beginning. I just meant in her college career.
This is why Jeremy doesn't get that. You know what? Penalty box is start the next segment.
Whatever, man. I'm just trying to.
I actually thought he was important and necessary, boys.
So, let's see what we got here, huh? This is a local hour, right? Let's do some local talk. There's a topic on this sheet that I was trying to get Mike's attention about, but he didn't have his headphones on, so he didn't hear me, so I was yelling, Mike. But it says Jeremy ruined the Panthers.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And since we ended the last segment sending Jeremy to the penalty box, I'd like to continue to pile on here. Jeremy, turn your mic off. Tell us, Mike, how did Jeremy ruin the Panthers?
Jeremy was featured on the Panthers broadcast for the first time all season. And he did a cool. I actually gave him kudos in one of the group chats. And hey, great job at Pantherland and touring the new facility. The Panthers came out and put up their worst early performance to start a game at Toronto. A big game, especially when you check the standings. A possible playoff preview. They just laid an absolute egg. What was interesting enough about that game is the Panthers brought it within one at the very end. They were down 5-1. And then Toronto adds a late goal. But this is all Jeremy's fault. He likes to tout his spectacular record when he's working sidelines for the Miami Heat. He blew it last night. He should never be on a Panthers broadcast ever again.
We'll get back to that in a second. But we have Lucy on the line now. Lucy, live from Albany? Is that where you are?
No, I got COVID, so I'm in my apartment.
Okay, close enough.
Close enough.
Lucy, I have a question for you.
Are you okay? Are you?
She's great.
I just want to check in on her. I mean, she just said she had COVID. You're just moving right onto the
this
game.
Isn't
she looks like she's beaming right now.
I had a rough weekend. It wasn't fun. I don't recommend COVID. It still got hands in 2024, but we're back. Caitlin Clark saved me.
There you go. Resurrection Monday, right, for you. Lucy, I asked this question to this room full of men, and they couldn't answer me because none of them watch enough women's college basketball. Have you ever seen a team with that confusing of a defensive game plan against Caitlin Clark?
It was mind-boggling. I think one of the craziest parts about that was like they were talking during the broadcast about how Haley Van Lith needed an IV that day because she was like so sick. And Kim Mulkey's like, yeah, I'm going to have her guard Caitlin. That's who I want chasing Caitlin down. It was like, I think that Iowa deserved to win that game. They were awesome. They were the better team last night. But that was just... If anyone lost that game for LSU, it was Kim Mulkey. What in the world was that defensive assignment? Haley Van Lith on Caitlin Clark? That was insane.
Well, it was Haley Van Lith on Caitlin Clark to start with. Haley Van Lith on Caitlin Clark as the game is continuing. She clearly has no answer to the point where she's shrugging. She is a meme today, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Juju who posted on the Le Batard Show account. This is what I'm going to say when my boss says, hey, you haven't gotten that done yet? No, that's that look right there. But then also, not to have any other defender on her, not to have anybody switching, not to have any bigs showing off as she's coming off these screens. They went under on the first couple of them to start the game.
Stupid.
And so can I ask, how does this compare and contrast with the final from last year, how they defended her?
Well, so actually last year, they didn't defend Caitlin particularly well. I think that's kind of been something that's lost. If you watch last year's game, LSU just hit every shot. Jasmine Carson was the real difference maker. She hit like 17 threes in that game, it felt like. Caitlin dropped almost 40 in that game as well. I think the real difference between this is, one, I don't know what they were doing, not double teaming Caitlin. Caitlin even came out and was like, I thought Flage should have been on me. Like, that's the defensive assignment I was preparing for, just because the length of Flage would have kind of disrupted Caitlin. And you saw that when finally, with 4 minutes left in the game, Kim Mulkey decided to switch the assignment. I think the real difference maker was they didn't really do anything to stop Caitlin, but they didn't do anything to stop Sydney Folter. They didn't do anything to stop Kate Martin. And that was the difference in last year, is they said, hey, we're going to isolate this game to Caitlin, but we're going to take everyone out of it. They didn't isolate the game to Caitlin this year, and they didn't take anybody out of it.
When you look at what's happening in college basketball on the women's side, we don't have the numbers yet for the ratings. Do you expect last night to beat the final from last year?
Did you forget you were hosting again for a brief moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 1,000%. I was just like, all right.
Just looking around. Dad, way to be way to be there for your team.
I heard it as a dramatic pause.
It was.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Basically, I'm going to tell you what.
State of women's basketball.
What I did was... subconsciously, I said, well, my good questions are out there. All right, Dan, take it away.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yeah.
Dan?
That?
Yeah. I also very quickly reminded you in the previous segment of Joe Mazzulla sending his Celtics to go under screens in the NBA Finals. You dick.
No, I asked about Iowa though. Like that's a great analogy. Sure, that I could have given you that.
Yeah,
one
I didn't
too.
have any other comps in the women's game, and of all the women's games that I've seen, especially in person on the season, I got to tell you, haven't really seen people going under the screens. But I did pull from a fairly famous example with Joe Mazzulla.
You gave great analysis. Unfortunately, what I asked was, has anyone guarded Caitlin Clark like that?
Yeah, okay, you know what? I don't even remember your question. I just can't shake the start to your question, so I'm going to ask Lucy my own question. And Lucy, we could have used you in the last segment because we talked about Angel Reese's response in the post-game presser.
You just took offense to me saying we could have used you in the last segment.
Yeah, but we definitely could have, but not for that basketball analysis. Okay. For the discussion that you tried to cook Jeremy on. You can put
I tried really hard.
You did, and we needed the voice, and unfortunately Lucy got sick. So I want to talk to you about Angel Reese and how we talk about it, because I mentioned before the game there was last year Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird. They were mentioning about the Tony Yayo that you can't see me, and if you dish it out, you got to be able to take it. And some people, not ignoring totally the words that Angel Reese said before about the online harassment, the sexualization, but they saw her demeanor and it be completely different from when she was winning to when she was losing, and they had all sorts of opinions on that, our show included. What was your takeaway?
Winning obviously changes everything. I think something people don't realize about me, I love Angel Reese. I'm a huge Angel Reese fan. I think it's hard for me personally to separate LSU and Kim Mulkey, and that's the issue I have with LSU. But Angel Reese, one, we don't really know what happened when she went into those cameras and she twisted her ankle and she went back and she went out of the game. She came back and you can arguably say she wasn't the same then. And so, yes, she could have re-aggravated that ankle injury, which could have led her to, not play as well, which that would have anyone emotional. Angel Reese, I do believe when her and Haley Van Lith-Flage said that she's the most scrutinized player in college basketball, I agree. I think that Angel plays tough all the time, but that's kind of a tough act to keep up. And I'm not saying that she's not tough, but I think that that's a girl that has really just a very heavy weight on her shoulders. And I think it was honestly kind of refreshing to see her sort of outside of that, you can't see me demeanor, and just, authentically, hey, I haven't felt happiness since I won the national championship. I thought it was really refreshing to see. I like Angel Reese, and God, I hope she goes to the WNBA, because I can't wait to cheer for her and not cheer for Kim Mulkey at the same time. I'm so excited for that.
Now, Lucy, let me ask you, given that the conversations that we've had on the show thus far have all been super duper basketball oriented, how much joy does that give you? Like, to know that we're not talking about like the spectacle of women's sports, and it's literally just treating it like what it is, a great sports story.
It was just like yesterday, which, by the way, I knew Iowa was going to win. I texted Taylor. Everyone can confirm with him. Yesterday before the game.
Hold on. Don't you
listen?
Get 0.
I'm telling a story. I have COVID. You can't interrupt me. I don't have a lot of lung capacity right now. Yesterday before the game started, it was just, there was this moment where my phone was blowing up, and it was everyone just actually talking to me about the game, about a women's basketball game. And it's something that, like, I've talked about on the show a little bit, but every time my little brother calls me and we talk about women's basketball, it's just this insane, just like, I sit with this just like, wow feeling. And I had that same feeling when we were in Iowa when I got the COVID. Before I got the COVID, it was really like just fit. There was one moment where the guy in front of us, there was a bad call, and he stood up and he just, gave the bird to the refs, spoke very strongly, and was just like yelling obscenities. And I was like, we made it. Yeah. Like he's losing his mind for a women's basketball game. And it was something so special about seeing the discourse last night, and just like it's you're seeing, the tides change, and hopefully this becomes the norm and the regular. And you hope when stars like Angel and Caitlin, eventually go on to the WNBA, that this can follow them there. Did you watch the second game, or did you pass out in a glory kind of filled? So I'm a little mentally ill. So I did watch the second game, but I watched it at the same time as I was watching. I wanted to hear what Kim Mulkey had to say about the game. So I was watching all the post-game pressers at the same time. So I did watch majority of the second half of USC UConn. How surprised were you about USC's collapse down the stretch offensively? I wasn't that surprised. I think they kind of run into a similar situation with Iowa where your offense and your entire team is kind of, around one person. There was a long time, I believe it was in the second quarter, where Juju didn't touch the ball one single time.
I hate college
run
basketball.
the ball through her.
I hate college basketball, men's or women's.
Yeah, this
because
is a college
that's a
basketball,
hallmark of college basketball. Though. Yeah, I know you're pretty incredible, but I'm gonna go over here.
It's crazy. It's like Iowa, Caitlin Clark should touch the ball every single possession. That's the same thing for USC and Juju Watkins. She should touch the ball every single possession. I even saw that with the South Carolina game when they were playing Indiana. There should never be a possession where you're not trying to get the ball to Camila Cardoso. Like there just isn't. So that's something that you're right. You do see in the college game a bit, but that was the key reason for USC. And I don't consider myself a great basketball, expert, but just sitting there watching that, I'm like, girl, do you just get the ball to her? What are you doing?
The pre-tournament prices would suggest that it was a foregone conclusion that South Carolina was going to run through this tournament. However, you mentioned the Indiana game. They erased a 20-point deficit. They've been challenged a lot. Now NC State finds itself in the Final Four. You have Caitlin Clark potentially matching up over there against South Carolina. Can this team actually be caught? Can this foregone conclusion be undone by possibly Caitlin Clark?
I mean, absolutely. One, she did it last year. So we know that is a possibility. I think South Carolina is the favorite. They should be the favorite. They've been the best team in women's college basketball the entire year. But watching that first half of the LSU-Iowa game last night, either of those teams playing like that could have beat South Carolina. I think that you have to plan for them very specifically. I think they are so good and they're better than everyone else, but they can be beat. You saw that specifically in the Indiana game. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that South Carolina is going to wipe the floor with whoever, they're playing against. They've struggled. You've seen that in the season. They almost lost to Tennessee. They blew a 20-point lead against Indiana. It's very possible for South Carolina to lose. And God, please let it be Caitlin. Let it be Caitlin.
Lucy, before we get to South Carolina, they got to go through UConn. Caitlin does. UConn is going to try to do magic against Caitlin with their defense. How do they do that? What is the best way to defend Caitlin? When this season has she had a bad game?
I'm not telling them.
I'm not telling
them? Okay.
That's incredible.
I'm not telling them.
Dawn Staley.
I know.
Or
Gino
Auriemma.
But you know.
Oh, shit.
You know. And you won't say.
So the thing is I don't actually think there's a way you can stop Caitlin Clark, and that's actually something that Kim Mulkey said in her post-game presser last night, and I mean that's accurate. I think Caitlin's had one game in the last 2 years where she scored less than 24 points. That's just not. You can't stop her. The way to beat Iowa is by taking everyone else out of the equation. Caitlin can score 50 points a game. We've seen it. She can't score 70. So you have to to beat Iowa, you have to take everyone else out of the mix, except for if you're Gino Auriemma listening to this. That's not the best idea. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Now I'm rooting for Caitlin Clark to score 70. And so I can say, Lucy, ha! You didn't call that one.
Look, if she did, I already got my Caitlin's Crunch Time ready for it.
On the way out here, you want to relive Amin forgetting he was hosting the show?
When you look at what's happening, it's like a bad book report. When you look at what's happening, the landscape of women's college basketball. nostalgia is through the roof across all industries, right? Like, people love nostalgia. Nostalgic things, old candy from when they were growing up, like the candy cigarettes. There's still some specialty stores that sell them. People love nostalgic cars, the classic cars, driving an 85 Oldsmobile Cutlass, right?
You think we'll ever bring typewriters back?
They're already back, Jack.
Are they?
Yeah, like these hipster people like love riding on typewriters.
Tom Hanks collects them famously.
What does he do with them?
Gives them to
I
people?
saw like in his house, like he had a really cool display. He almost uses them as art pieces.
Wow.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about people who actually use the intended purpose for the thing. Chris,
Vinyl records certainly fit that category.
Vinyl records I can understand because the sound that comes out of vinyl is very different than what you hear from a digital audio or any other medium.
For the better.
But Chris was wondering if CDs are going to make a comeback.
Why is that funny?
Why would CDs make a comeback?
Why would vinyl make a comeback?
Everything does.
No, not everything. 8-tracks never made a comeback.
Cassettes are still not back.
But there's a difference
Cassettes
now.
actually are kind of back.
Yeah, cassettes are back, and
what?
No, they
Jeremy,
are.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Okay,
What do you mean?
go on-
Yeah, Jeremy.
I mean, so
Okay,
you just
go on
ignored-
anybody's like store on their website, any musician right now, and you can find a cassette
Yeah.
tape
Any
of their
music,
album.
name one. Name one. I'm about to Google it right now.
I mean, I know. So
Yeah.
my favorite band is
Wow.
Bleachers. You can go on the Bleachers website and go look, and they have a cassette on there.
Look,
you want to go do it?
It's not a thriving.
We're gonna go
indus-
through this.
Yeah, it's not a
Do
thriving
cars
industry.
come with cassettes anymore?
No, but it's not a thriving industry. But a couple of years ago, much like vinyls were reintroduced, musicians, certainly top line ones and kitschy ones, indie artists all alike, started releasing cassettes again. So they came back in ways that 8-tracks weren't. Proceed.
When I bought my last car, I asked the dealer, "Can I get a CD slot?"
Why?
Because I like CDs. I used to anyway.
You
and
like
he
CDs?
said no. Like, you can't even get that as an added luxury.
I could just see it the way vinyl is now. I could see CD shops like being a thing. Let's have a CD party. Everyone bring a CD over. We'll have a. You guys never been to a vinyl party? No. Okay.
Greg, do you have a back of my day today?
I do not, no, because Dan's not here. That's a Tuesday gig only when Dan is here.
That's the fine
traditionally.
print?
Yeah. It's not fine. I mean, it's big print.
It's bold.
So many
Yeah,
disclaimers,
big
man.
headlines.
I know. Like, every Greg Cody bit has to come with that guy who speaks really fast at the end of it.
Like micro machines.
Now
but
Dan's not here.
I don't really know why cassettes came back. That one surprised me when it did. I understand why vinyl came back. Audiophiles would always make a sound argument for it. It just sounds better on this. But CDs, I don't really see what the argument would be for it to come back.
Well, the convenience. I mean, you can fast forward on a CD. You can press a button and go right to the next song.
I know it's more convenient than a vinyl record player, but it's not more convenient than an MP3 player.
Right, like it has no place. I'm gonna tell you. I'll give you a great example. When I worked in the NBA in the video coordinators department, right? Every team had to make copies of the game for your opponent, right? At the end of the game, you give them 2 copies, and then they would duplicate it later. It was on DVD back then. This was before it was all digital. There was 2 exceptions where you had to give them their copy of the game on VHS. Houston with Jeff Van Gundy, Utah with Jerry Sloan. And I remember having a conversation with their video coordinator saying, why the hell do they use VHS? They said they're used to and comfortable with the controls. And I said, but the controls for a VHS are exactly the same as they are for a DVD. Play, fast forward, pause, rewind. Difference is on the DVD.
It's not about
you can
practicality. This is about like young people.
It's nostalgia.
Being like, oh, I never got to experience
I think
this.
that's
let
what's
me
gonna happen.
let me check this out.
It's so inconvenient.
But that's not the point. It's not about the convenience. Chris is right. Like Gen Z and now Gen Alpha, like they just think that stuff from the aughts is cool because they didn't experience it. So the same way that sort of style is coming back, like right now late 90s is really in. Soon it's going to be like throwback jerseys from the early 2000s. Like that's going to be back in the next year. Everybody's going to be wearing throwback jerseys. But that's exactly what this generation really likes.
So this generation that can't sit down and watch an entire basketball game, an entire football game, anything of length whatsoever because they consume things on 10 seconds or less, wants to go back to a vehicle that if there is a CD with an album that has 3 good songs on it and 14 bad ones, you have to sit through 14 bad songs to get to 3 good songs?
You can just hit next.
But why would I do that?
But Tony, also,
it's also not to listen to it.
Also,
it's probably reserved for better albums.
There's a part where the album, where the CD has the slightest smudge on it, and so when they get the song,
ruined.
Your favorite part of the
I
song.
love that though.
Yeah, but that's no different than
You could buy me in the club, 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 in the club. Ah,
You just brought me back.
I collect vinyl, which is not at all surprising. Although I have to replace the needle, so I haven't bought a new one in about a year. But what I like about vinyls is you pour yourself a glass of wine, you kick back, you listen to an entire album. It's an experience. You physically hold this beautiful copy of something. A lot of them have cool inserts. I was a member of the Third Man Records Vinyl Club for a very long time. It's a full-on experience as opposed to just it's not to skip any song. So if you want that, you go to a digital player. But with an album, that's reserved with a vinyl record, that's reserved for an album that you rate highly, that you love start to finish.
I can relate to what Mike is saying. Back in the day, and by the way, vinyl in headphones is extra special.
Spectacular.
So what you do is you take an album that you love, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, as an example, and you know you're going to devote an hour to listening to the whole album, and it's a wonderful experience.
It's got an ASMR element to it. The pin dropping, the fact that you hold this vinyl in your hands. Perfect. It's not just the listening sensation. It's got a smell to it. There's nothing quite like that sound. It's why so many people romanticize it. It's why it came back.
That's why you roll up a fat doobie and then just put on Dark Side of the Moon and watch Wizard of Oz at the same time.
Yes. Now
That's
you're
the
talking.
big one.
Dude, everybody had Bob Marley's greatest hits on vinyl. Every dorm.
What, Legend? Was that the name of the album?
Yep.
About
Dude,
Bob
I
Marley?
have it. I have it in a frame in my house.
It sounds staticky. A little overrated, this sound.
It's part of the experience, because then when you find the groove, finally, it's just great. It does make people happy, and yeah, there's a nostalgia element to it. And I don't see where CDs. I understand the nostalgia of a CD
book
case.
was like 50 CDs.
So
that was great.
I am nostalgic
Yeah.
because you would get in someone's car and you would look through their thing and you would judge.
They had
them
it in
on
their door. You
on
pull
the
it out of the door and you start.
Or the visor had up
Ooh,
the
I love
visor.
the visor
thing
one.
with all
Oh, the visor.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Jeremy whispered in my ear a question that offended me. I was offended by this question, Jeremy. Can you say what you asked me?
Did you ever burn someone a CD?
Have you ever burned someone a CD?
Yeah.
This man
He thinks you're old.
Have I ever burned someone a CD? You know what? Do you realize when I was in college, I paid rent from bootlegging CDs?
No, I didn't.
Oh
know
my
that,
God!
Ian.
What a time to be alive! I had the whole plug because I was one of the early people on LimeWire to be downloading albums 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months before they came out, then burn them, and then I would go on. I lived in Atlanta at the time. I'd go on MARTA, which is the subway system, and I'd sell them like for $5 a pop. And so at first it was a little slow, and then I saved up enough money to buy myself a CD player. And I literally just had a CD player just so people could sample it, and then they would start buying. And the best seller I think I ever had was, I want to say it was a Jay-Z album. I can't remember what it was now, but here's the fun part. When Jay-Z and R. Kelly Best of Both Worlds came out, I thought, oh my God, my entire rent check is going to get covered easily by this. Easily. So I remember going on the subway and say, hey, got that new Jay-Z, R. Kelly, and people were like, yeah.
Back in the day, that was a huge deal in terms of piracy.
To get it out before it came out, it was a massive
That was a
deal.
big leak.
You're admitting to a crime.
No.
Should have
Statute-
used
Statute of limitations.
Statute of
I
limitations.
What would J.
really
Cole-
should have used
what would J.
different
Cole say about
terminology
this?
there.
Statute of limitations. So I'm going up to people. People are like, yeah, I don't really like that. I don't listen to that. I'm like, what? And I'm just going and I'm getting no buzz back. And then finally I said, what do you mean you don't listen to Jay-Z and R. Kelly? And the girl said to me, I don't listen to him. And that's when I realized, oh, this R. Kelly thing is a lot bigger than just something that people are talking about behind the scenes or whatever on internet message boards. It has reached a point where it is affecting my pockets. And that's when I became staunchly anti-R.
There
Kelly.
is something that I romanticize about that era where you get, all right, Fabulous just dropped a banger of a song. Can't deny it. Here we go. I've just spent 3 hours downloading this song on BearShare.
Yep.
Here we go. And then 3 seconds in, no Fabulous!
This is what happened to me the first time I downloaded Best of Both Worlds. I listened
You
to
got the Hannah Montana song?
No, I put it in. I pressed play, downloaded, and I got the best of both worlds. Oh, and I was like, all right, cool, got
it
it.
would loop.
It looped for 55 minutes.
Dude, I had the same exact leaked version. The LimeWire got me too.
I sold it to my buddy. My buddy came back to me and said, "Hey man, what's up?" I'm like,
It's a
what's
weird
up?
choice.
He was like, what? I was like, yeah, it's the album. He's like, no, man. I'm like, yeah, I heard Jay-Z say,
listen to it first, man.
I play for the team I own. I was like, yo, it's a crazy bar. He's like, yeah. And then R. Kelly just keeps singing and repeating over and over after that. And I listened to it longer than 40 seconds.
Another underrated experience from the CD era is forgetting where you stashed your CDs and then having to go through the visor real quick because the sun hits you in the face and then boom, you get clocked right between the eyes by Juvenile's 400 Degrees.
Oh, I'll tell you one that's even better than this. Jeremy, this is what would happen. You would have this big rack. Everyone had this big rack in their house, right? And that was the showcase. These are the movies I have and these are the CDs I have. And so you say, oh, cool, I've been looking for this album. You open it up and the CD in there is not the CD that's on the outside of the case.
Yep. I can relate to that.
Did you have that with VHS tapes, Greg?
This is a new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.